Hello, friend. Welcome to the English Story Room YouTube channel. In this story, you will meet interesting characters and engaging plots. This story will help you learn English easily and improve your listening and speaking skills. Join us and enjoy listening to this story while you learn English in a fun way. Chapter 1. A Strange Message. Otto Liedenbrock is the famous professor of geology at the University of Hamburg in Germany. He is also my uncle. He is 65 years old, not very tall, with gray hair. He wears small, round gold glasses that make him look very serious. I'm Axel. I'm only 19 and the professor's personal assistant. I watch my uncle very carefully when he works. That's why I know so much about our planet, Earth. My uncle, the professor, is a hard worker. He spends most of his day in his laboratory at the university, so he never comes home before 2 for lunch. But yesterday he came home very early. This surprised Martha, our cook. The poor old girl did not have the lunch ready, and she was a little upset. "Professor, you're early." "Never mind, Martha. I don't want lunch today." "But, Professor, you must eat." The professor looked excited. "Martha, food is not important." Then he turned to me. "Axel, come with me." He took me into his library. It was a big room with lots of bookcases against the walls and heavy velvet curtains in front of the windows. In the middle of the room, there was a desk where my uncle spent most of his evenings. He took an old book out of his coat pocket and looked at me. "Axel, look at this. Look at this." I took it from his hand. Its cover was hard, and it looked very old. "Why, what is it, Professor?" "I found it today in an old bookshop. It's 700 years old." "What's it about?" "It's about the old princess from Norway who came to live in Iceland. Here is your corrected script with proper grammar, punctuation, and formatting. Why is that so special?" He smiled and said, "Because it is written in a language that no one uses anymore." I opened the book and saw strange letters from a strange alphabet. I did not understand any of it. I turned its yellow pages, and a piece of paper fell out of the book onto the floor. The professor jumped on it. "What's this?" It was an old, yellow piece of paper with the same strange letters on it. The professor knew many languages, but he could not read this old language from Iceland. He took a thick book from one of the shelves. It was a dictionary for all the old languages in the world which people do not speak today. Then he gave me a piece of paper and a pencil. "Axel, write down these letters as I read them to you." The professor read each letter to me, and I wrote them down. When we finished, this is what they said. "Go into the volcano at Snæfellsjökull before the 1st of July. The sun will show you the way to the center of the earth. Make this journey. It is fantastic." The name under this strange message was Arne Saknussemm. I don't believe it. Who's he? He was a famous scientist. He wrote many strange things about the earth, but no one believed him. They said he was crazy. This must be the answer to the things he said. He left this piece of paper in the old book for someone to find. Do you understand, Axel, how lucky we are? Then he turned to the library door. "Martha!" I couldn't understand any of the things my uncle said. "What do you mean, we?" Martha opened the door to the library. Did you want me, sir? Yes, Martha, I want you to buy us 2 train tickets to Denmark. Master Axel and I are going to Iceland. This was the biggest surprise of my life. What? Uncle, I can't go. The professor looked at me calmly. You can, and you will. Chapter 2. Grauben. There is a 17-year-old girl living in our town. I think she is the most beautiful girl in Germany. She's got long blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Her name is Grauben, and we are in love. We want to get married. That's why. Here is your corrected script with proper grammar, punctuation, and formatting. I didn't want to go with my uncle on his mysterious trip, but he couldn't understand that. Are you in love with Grauben? Yes. And you want to marry her? Yes. The professor was silent. He was a good man, but he could not understand love because his only interest was science. He forgot what I said and began to talk about our journey. Today is the 26th of May. We have 1 month to get to Sneffels. We're going to take the train to Denmark, and then we'll take a boat to Iceland. The whole trip is going to take 12 days. Then we have to walk to the volcano. I could not listen to him any more. My heart felt heavy. The professor needed an assistant, and he did not want anyone else to know about this secret. But how could I leave my Grauben? I went for a walk through the beautiful city of Hamburg. I walked along the Elbe River thinking of Grauben. I stopped for a moment to look at a fishing boat sailing on the calm water. Then I turned, and like magic, she was there. Grauben, my Grauben, stood 20 feet away, looking at the river. Grauben! She looked like an angel. We ran into each other's arms and kissed. Oh, Axel, I'm so excited. She sounded very happy, but I couldn't understand why. Excited? Why are you excited, my love? Here is your corrected script with proper grammar, punctuation, and formatting. I was at your house. I heard about your journey. Isn't it wonderful? For a moment I felt sad. So Grauben wanted me to go away from her. But Grauben, we want to get married. I don't know when I'm coming back. She looked at me lovingly and held my hand. It doesn't matter. I'll still wait for you. Don't you understand? This is the kind of journey all great men must make. When you come back, you're going to be famous like your uncle. Then our life will be perfect together. Do you really mean that? She touched my face and smiled. Of course I do. Oh, Grauben, you are the most wonderful girl in the world. Back at my uncle's house, I felt excited. Then I thought of something. Maybe this adventure was too dangerous. Maybe we wouldn't come back. I ran into the library where my uncle was. Uncle, is it possible that we won't come back from this journey? His answer didn't make me feel any better. There's only one way to find out, Axel. Chapter 3. Iceland. It was very early in the morning when the boat got to Iceland. We could see the round body of the Sneffelsjökull volcano going up into the sky through the clouds. It had snow near the top, and it looked like an angry monster waiting for someone to try and climb it. The boat stopped at Reykjavik. It was a small town with small brick houses. Mr. Fredriksson, a professor from the university there, met us at the boat. He looked very friendly and smiled when he saw us. "You must be Professor Liedenbrock, and you must be Professor Fredriksson. This is my assistant, Axel." We shook hands. "You got my letter then?" "Oh, yes, Professor, and everything is ready for you. Please come with me." My uncle did not tell anyone the real reason for our journey. He wanted the two of us to be the only ones to travel to the center of the earth, but we needed someone to go along with us, as we didn't know the area and the ice and snow around the volcano were too dangerous. So Mr. Fredriksson found us a guide. His name was Hans, and he looked perfect for the job. He was tall and very strong, with small blue eyes and long red hair. He almost never smiled or spoke. Mr. Fredriksson introduced us. "Professor Liedenbrock, this is Hans. Hans, Professor Liedenbrock, and his assistant, Axel." Hans moved his head just a little to say hello. Hans is a very quiet man, like most Icelanders, but he is the strongest and best climber in Reykjavik. My uncle smiled at Mr. Fredriksson's words. "He's just perfect, Mr. Fredriksson." Mr. Fredriksson let us stay at his house until we were ready to leave. We needed many things for our adventure. We took 4 horses to travel to the mountain. The professor and I each rode one, but Hans walked. The other 2 horses carried our bags. We took a lot of things with us: rope for climbing, tools, light guns, medicine, and enough food for 6 months. The only problem was we could only carry enough water for 1 week. The professor believed there was water under the volcano, but what if there wasn't? We left Reykjavik on the 15th of June, early in the morning. We traveled along the sea, and it was a wonderful journey. The land had a dark color from the explosions of the volcano, and the beautiful blue sea next to it made it look fantastic. The journey to Sneffels took us 6 days, and each day we stopped in a different village for the night. The villages were small and very pretty, built at the foot of the volcano next to the sea. The villagers were very nice, but like Hans, they did not talk much. When we got closer to the top of Sneffels, I thought of something. "Uncle, what happens if the volcano explodes again?" "No, that's impossible. This volcano had its last explosion in 1229. I checked the ground, it's impossible. But Axel, I am a scientist. This is a fact. There is nothing more to say." It was now 11 at night, and we were at the top. We stopped and found a small place inside the opening of the volcano where we could sleep. That night, I had a dream. I saw that I was alone inside the volcano, lost and very scared. Suddenly, the volcano exploded, and I was shot out of its top like a rock. Chapter 4. Inside the Volcano. The mouth of the volcano was 1 mile wide. We tied a rope around each other and began to climb down. Hans went first. The inside of the volcano looked like the inside of an ice cream cone. Its opening became smaller as we went down because of the rocks left there after explosions. The bottom of the volcano was 2,000 feet down. When we got there, I looked up and saw the opening at the top. It was a perfect circle of clear blue sky. There were 3 holes in the floor of the volcano, each about 100 feet wide. The explosions of rocks and hot lava once came through these holes and then out through the top. Now they looked like dark caves. I looked at the holes and then turned to my uncle. Which one do we take? I don't know. Arne Saknussemm said the sun touches one of them at the end of June. Today is June 25th. It is too late to see the sun today. We must wait until tomorrow. What if it's cloudy tomorrow? Then we will wait again. But we only have 5 more days in July. The sun is too low. It cannot reach the bottom of the volcano. Then we can go home, Axel. Don't say such things. Tomorrow will be sunny, and we are going to the center of the earth. The next day it was cloudy. The professor could not believe it. 4 days. We only have 4 days. Please, please, sun, come out. The professor looked up at the sky with his arms open. The only thing he wanted now was to see the sunshine. I thought of Graben and the danger waiting for my uncle and me inside those holes. I hoped for rain. Hans built a small shelter from the large rocks he found on the floor of the volcano. He never said much, but he always thought of something useful to do. I checked the rocks on the volcano walls to see how old they were. Drops of water from the ice and snow outside ran down the wall, and the sound they made inside was like music. Suddenly the professor called out my name. Axel! Axel, come here! I ran to him, curious to see what was there. What is it? Look at this. There were 2 words on the wall of the volcano in the old Icelandic language. What does it say? Arne Saknussemm was here. We're in the right place. The next day the sun came out, and at 1 in the afternoon it touched the hole in the center of the floor. That's it. That's the hole to the center of the earth. Let's go. Hans brought our bags, but there was one problem. We could not carry all of them and climb down the hole at the same time. What must we do now? The professor took off his glasses and cleaned them, while he tried to think of a solution. Well, we'll throw everything we don't need down the hole and find it when we get to the bottom. Hans threw the bags down the hole in front of us. We listened, but we never heard them hit the bottom. Chapter 5. Lost in the Tunnels. We put our rope through holes in the rocks on the sides of the walls, and then climbed down. Hans went first, then my uncle, and then me. Every 200 feet, we found a flat rock to stop on. We pulled the rope down from above us, tied it to a new rock, and then started again. We did this for almost 10 hours and traveled 2,000 feet down. Finally, Hans said something. Stop! It was only one word, but it was nice to finally hear his voice. What happened? We're at the bottom. The professor and I looked at him. Of what? I don't know. There was a turn in the hole. There was an open area, like a cave at the bottom of the hole, which continued to the right. Our bags were there. After 10 hours of climbing down, we were very tired. We decided to spend the night there. In the morning, we continued our journey down. The hole now opened and looked more like a tunnel. We did not need to climb because we could walk down this tunnel. We used our torches so we could see the rock on the walls clearly. It looked like glass of different colors. Some of it was red, some was brown, and some was yellow. My uncle saw me looking at it. That's from the lava. It's beautiful. So you're starting to enjoy our journey. There's more to see. Come along. We walked for 2 more days and found other tunnels. There were tunnels everywhere, but we did not know which was the right one. Unfortunately, our water ran out. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to find a spring. There are many, but we have to go down further. I could not move. I was very tired and thirsty and thinking of Groban. Uncle, I can't go on. Axel, please, we are going to find water. Water? It was Hans's voice. What did you say? Water. There was a loud sound behind the wall next to us. It sounded like the water of a river. Hans took a pickaxe and made a hole in the wall. Water came out onto the floor around us. I told you, Axel. Water! Ow! It's hot! Don't touch it. It needs air. We're too far underground. The water was cold enough to drink after a few minutes, and we all felt strong again. We continued our journey, but I made a serious mistake. I was very excited about finding the water and went first. I walked too far in front of the others and got lost. I tried to go back, but could not find them. I shouted their names. Uncle, Hans. I could only hear my own voice in the tunnel. I was afraid. I ran, then I fell. I fell through the air down a long tunnel, then hit my head and everything went black around me. Chapter 6. An Underground Water World. When I opened my eyes, I heard the sound of the sea. The sun was high in the sky, but this was not possible. We were underground. My uncle stood over me. He's okay? Hans smiled. My head hurt. I touched it and felt a bandage on it. I tried to speak, but it was difficult. Where are we? Don't speak, Axel. You had a terrible fall. We heard you screaming. We were in a tunnel next to yours. Luckily. The 2 channels opened up on this beach. My uncle sat down next to me, his voice filled with excitement. Axel, we've discovered an underground sea. There are trees here and the bones of animals that lived thousands of years ago. When you're feeling better, we're going to sail across this sea. Oh, Axel, you can't imagine how happy I am. I hadn't been able to move much for 2 days, but I heard Hans building a boat for us. I couldn't understand how there was light here. The professor explained that it's a mystery, but it's like electricity coming from the heat of these rocks. We're inside what seems like a giant cave with the ceiling miles high. There are even clouds because of the water. I looked up and saw them. I couldn't see the top of the cave, but it was hard to believe that all of this was underground. When I felt strong again, I took a walk along the beach. There were shells from a time before man walked on Earth, and I saw the bones of what looked like a huge elephant. I wondered, could anything live under the earth? Are there animals alive down here? The boat was ready, and so were we. We left the beach, and a strong wind quickly pushed us out to sea. After a few hours on this strange sea, Hans tied a pickaxe to a rope and threw it into the water. The professor wanted to know how deep the sea was, but the pickaxe never touched the bottom. When Hans pulled it back into the boat, its metal head had large scratches on it. "What's that?" I asked. Hans examined it closely. "Teeth," he said. "Could something so big live in these waters?" The professor checked his compass. "We're traveling south. If I'm correct, we left Iceland when we went under the volcano, traveled beneath the Atlantic Ocean, and now we're under Scotland. That's fantastic. But we're still not going down. I want to go further. Suddenly, huge waves rocked the boat. What's happening? I asked. Hans pointed to something dark about a mile away. It was getting closer, and I thought, what could it be? I saw what I thought was a giant dolphin, but I was wrong. It was an alligator. As it came closer, I realized it wasn't just an alligator either. It had the body of a dolphin and the head of an alligator, and it was over 100 feet long. Then I saw a huge snake with a shell on its back, like a turtle. We took our guns in hand, but the animals ignored us as they fought each other. It was a horrible battle. We heard the snake hissing and the dolphin screaming before they both dove underwater. Everything went quiet. The snake's head eventually surfaced, hissing one last time before it died. But where was the dolphin? Chapter 7. A Terrible Storm. Our journey now felt even more perilous. The professor was frightened, but nothing could stop him from reaching the center of the earth. Hans continued to sail the boat, but we didn't see any land. We traveled for hours with no signs of life. Then we heard a sound like fast-running water. We couldn't see it, but the noise grew louder. We finally saw water shooting up into the air. It was coming from the body of a huge sea creature. We tried to turn the boat, but the waves pulled us closer to the creature. For a moment, I thought this might be the end of our journey. The water shot up 500 feet into the air, and an animal that could do that could easily kill us. However, we realized that the long black shape we thought was an animal was actually an island. It was like a small volcano shooting up water instead of lava. That's where all this water is coming from, the professor said. I checked the water temperature with a thermometer. 163 degrees, I reported. We're close to the center. We can't go on. It's too hot. The electric light coming from the rocks above us started causing explosions. The clouds were now close to the water, and small lines of light that looked like snakes exploded all around us. The waves grew larger and began pushing us away. I was terrified. "What's happening?" I shouted, but the explosions were too loud to hear each other. "It's an electrical storm," the professor yelled. Hans tried to keep the boat from sinking, but the wind pushed us through the water like a race car. Suddenly, a large ball of white electric light struck the boat, and none of us could move. It held our feet with its electric power. We shouted to each other, but the noise was deafening. The boat moved on its own, and there was nothing we could do. The ball of electricity exploded, throwing us all into the water. Hans managed to grab the professor with one arm and me with the other. Somehow he got us safely to land. I began to think that his strength came from the energy he saved by not talking. The storm subsided, and we saw the boat still afloat 100 feet away. Hans swam out to retrieve our food and equipment. The professor and I tried to understand where we were. "I think this sea is 800 miles wide," the professor said. "That means we went under Europe. The Mediterranean Sea is now overhead. Let's wait for Hans to bring back the compass." When Hans returned with the compass, the professor and I couldn't believe it. It showed we were north, not south, meaning the wind had blown us back to where we started. Chapter 8. A Lost World. We were on the north side of the sea again, but not on the same beach. We began to explore. The professor didn't want to stay here long. He wanted to continue exploring the sea. "Professor, it's too dangerous. You saw what happened?" I said. "I don't care, Axel," he replied. "I didn't come all this way to turn back now. We need to see what's on the other side of this sea." This beach was longer than the previous one, with more holes in the rocks, likely due to earthquakes. There were many more bones and old shells scattered about. "Look at all this, Axel. We can read the entire history of the world from these bones. There are skeletons of animals that no longer exist today. It's thrilling to see them out in the open rather than in a museum." "Axel, look. A human head among all these bones," the professor said. "How did it get here? Did it fall down one of those holes like we did? Is that going to happen to us?" The professor was excited. "If other scientists could see me now, this might be the oldest skeleton ever found." We walked further down the beach, and it changed. Large trees and small plants began to appear. The further we went, the more life we encountered. Suddenly, I saw something moving behind the trees. My uncle and I quickly hid. It was a family of mammoths from thousands of years ago. "Axel, can you believe it? There's another world beneath our Earth," he exclaimed. But then, I saw a giant man walking behind the mammoths. He was over 12 feet tall, with long hair and a beard, and wore a piece of animal skin around his waist. "Should we try to talk to him?" I asked. "No, he looks dangerous. Hans isn't with us, and we don't have our guns. Let's go back to the boat." We quietly ran away so the prehistoric man wouldn't see us. When we reached the beach, I found an old knife on a rock. "Let's clean this and keep it. It might be useful." "Axel, don't you see what this is?" my uncle said. "Yes, it's a knife, but it's made of metal. It's only 2 or 3 years old." "Do you mean—" I started. "Yes," he replied. "It's a recent artifact." The professor spotted a cave nearby and ran toward it. "Axel, look. On the rock next to the entrance, there are 2 letters in Old Icelandic," he said excitedly. "This must be the entrance we're looking for." Chapter 9. The Last Tunnel. Hans brought the boat to the end of the beach where the cave was located. We tied it to a rock in the water and took our bags into the cave. "Are we going to use the boat again?" I asked. "I don't know," the professor replied. "Maybe if we come back this way, but who knows where this new tunnel will lead us." We walked about 12 feet into the cave when we saw a huge rock blocking the tunnel. How could Arne Sackham get around this rock, I wondered. The professor thought for a moment. Maybe it fell after his journey, perhaps due to an earthquake or a terrible storm. "I wish there was another earthquake to move the rock," I said. "That's it," the professor exclaimed. "We can use the gunpowder to move this rock." "Do you think it will work?" I asked. "There's only one way to find out," he replied. We still had some extra gunpowder with us. Hans made a hole in the rock with his pickaxe. Then we put the gunpowder inside. We used a long rope to light it, giving us time to move back and hide. We all climbed into the boat and moved 50 feet out to sea. Waiting for the explosion made us very nervous. "Maybe it won't work," I said. "Don't say that!" the professor snapped. Suddenly, the rocks on the beach opened like curtains. The earth shook, and everything fell into a huge hole. We were thrown back into the boat, and the final explosion caused a massive wave that pushed us back to the beach. We were airborne, and the hole below us looked big enough to swallow the entire world. "We're going down into the hole," the professor said. "Not this way," we shouted, but the noise of falling rocks was deafening. The boat moved like a train through the tunnel and then crashed into a new river of fresh water. The boat went underwater and came back up so quickly that there was very little water inside it. We clung to the sides of the boat with all our strength. "Professor, where are we?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, "but the water is taking us somewhere. We have no choice but to follow it." The temperature was rising, and the walls of the tunnel glowed red like lava. "Are we under another volcano?" I asked. As I finished my sentence, we heard a loud roar from behind us. Water and air pushed us forward faster. The walls began to shake, and rocks started falling. Chapter 10. Back Home. It became clear that we were inside a volcano, and it was about to erupt. I saw the blue sky through the round hole at the top of the volcano. With one final terrible roar, we were thrown into the air. The volcano hurled us into the sea. Hans saved us again with his incredible strength. But where were we? It looked like the surface of the earth. There were small boats in the water and olive and fruit trees on the land. Behind us loomed the massive volcano. A little boy appeared. We tried to approach him, but he was scared of us, likely due to our disheveled appearance from all our underground adventures. The professor spoke to him in German, French, and English, but the boy didn't understand. Finally, the boy spoke in Italian. "What did he say?" I asked. "He said we're in Italy," the professor replied. "You mean we went into a volcano in Iceland and came out of another in Italy?" "Yes," the professor confirmed. "That's Mount Etna." And that was how our journey ended. The professor was disappointed that he didn't reach the center of the earth, but when we returned to Germany, he felt better. Martha had told everyone in Hamburg about our adventure, and there was a big celebration when we arrived. Everyone at the train station welcomed us, but the only person I looked for was my dear friend. I saw her like a beacon through the crowd. "Oh, Axel, I'm so glad you're back. I thought of you every day and was sometimes afraid, but somehow I knew you were all right." "Well, I never felt safe, but I wanted to come back to you every minute of every day," I said. A stage was set up at the station, and journalists asked the professor to talk about our journey. "My nephew Axel and I have returned from an incredible adventure," the professor began. "We saw things that scientists still don't understand. There is life in the heart of this planet: water, beaches, and trees." A.R. Snoes, a famous scientist from the 16th century, was the first to travel underground. We are the second. I don't know if others will attempt this dangerous journey in the future, but if they do, they'll need a guide like Hans, or they might not survive. For a moment, I thought I saw a smile on Hans's face as the crowd clapped and cheered, but as usual, the quiet Icelander didn't say a word.